So Kayla, I was watching this anime called Hell Mode, right? It has a
Mm,
much longer name. The name is actually just ridiculous, right?
okay.
Um and
Like
I
most titles these
yeah,
days.
yes, like most titles. I think the correct title is Hell Mode. The hardcore gamer dominates in another world with garbage balancing, right?
Okay.
And
That's just a
yes,
chapter. That's just a whole chapter of a
yes,
story in that title.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And it sounds like one of those animes, those isekais that are just a throwaway. So I'm gonna show you like the trailer itself, right?
Mm.
Um, you got your main character here. He's your traditional otaku, and he's gonna get transported into another world, a la like a lot of other isekais, right?
Mm.
And he has this ability called Summoner, which I thought was pretty interesting, right? Because we've seen a
Hmm.
Summoner,
Yes.
aka Sun Jin Woo, right?
Yeah.
And I know Soul Leveling is gonna get a lot of flack for being overhyped, or I just think Soul Leveling is one of those series that's overhated, mainly because it excels at what it's supposed to be, and it's not supposed to be a deep story that's supposed to like require like thousands and thousands of chapters or anything like that to get its point
Right.
across, right? It's a power fantasy
Right.
of a simple guy with a simple goal, that happens to get dragged into a much larger thing, as you've seen
Hmm.
those two seasons,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And Hell Mode has an anime where I'll bet the animation isn't the best in the world, right? But it was getting the job done, and the actual animation mirrors what I eventually read in the manga, right? So
Okay.
I watched all the way up until I believe it was episode 10 that recently came out.
Hmm.
And like like this, he's fighting like this beast here, and I wish the animation was actually hand drawn instead of having like the clunkiness of having like 3D models drawn on top of it. But you really can't predict the budget, and no one can predict whether an anime is going to become popular or not, right?
Right.
But for the beats that go on in this series itself, it was interesting enough for me to be like, you know what, I'm actually gonna read it. And that's the job of most animes, to get you to
Right.
read the
To get
manga,
you to read
right?
the book. Yeah.
Right. So there's about 95 chapters that was at least translated from what I was reading and whatnot.
Hmm.
And I read from chapter 16 all the way until 95. Now, what got me to read was this character that's currently here on screen, right? He's not the main
Hmm.
character, but he's one of those characters. And I'm going to spoil you because you're not going to see the series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
far,
But
no interest. Right.
yes, right. And for those people that don't want to get spoiled, you might want to blur out the next minute. So he dies, right?
Okay.
And I had a feeling he was going to die even because of the way that they was building up. But it was one of those things like the last episode. He came. So basically, if you're a noble in this world, right? And if
Right.
you're born having a talent, it's seen as being the worst thing. If you're a noble and you have a talent, that's seen as the worst thing, right? But for the
Okay.
common folk in the world, if you are born a commoner or less than a commoner, then you have a talent that's seen as a good thing, right?
Hmm.
And it's like complete opposites. So nobles want to be born without a talent, while commoners and below commoners want to be born with a talent, because that means you have a
Okay.
chance to be upgraded in your status depending on what it is, right?
Now,
Because
wait. Is a
yes,
talent like a magic thing?
yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
think of
Not
it.
like I can play piano.
Yes,
Like it's
yes.
I can
Like
shoot fireballs out of my fingertips.
fireballs, you can wield axes, you could be a sword master, a saint,
Mm.
any of those things, right? So he has a talent, and but because he's a noble and he has a talent, you have this thing called the noble's obligation, which I
Hmm.
thought was a pretty interesting concept, right? So like, that got me to read the manga and read ahead, right after
Hmm.
he died, because I thought he's going to be a much more central character, for what they were setting him up as, because he was sparring with our main character of
Hmm.
the series. Now, the main character, once again, he's Isekai. He gets reincarnated into this world. Thank God they don't do all the stuff like Mushoku Tensei and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Taking a shot. It is what it is. You guys know that shit's kind of weird. Um,
Yeah.
and he doesn't. You don't really go through all of that, right? But the main character has this ability called Summoner, but the gods kind of like messed up. That was like one of the running gags, right? Did they
Hmm.
mess up? Well, that remains to be seen because I read the manga, I read ahead on it, right? And the main character in the series itself, his name is Alan, our little boy here. There we go. So him here, right? He's able to summon all these different types of creatures from rank E to what I read ahead, and where he's at rank A. So this is now spoiler territory for people that wanted to learn more about the series, right? Learning what the noble's obligation was is what intrigued me, because I'm just like, I watched the anime, I'm just like, all right, they're not going to get into all this obviously in the anime. So when I read ahead and I read what the noble obligation was, I'm just like, oh, okay, it looks like this person, this writer, cared about the isekai stories, right? And I say that with a lot of like intrigue, because a lot of isekais could get disregarded as being sloth. We've watched a lot of them, right? Where obviously, you know, everyone hopes that the isekai series becomes more popular as a writer, because they get to write multiple volumes. This one particularly had a system that I'm just like, okay, I like how this is being developed, and I like how the characters are being developed. Sure, in the beginning the focus is on our main character here, Alan, and he's going to be the main focus of the series, but I wanted to see how are they going to build a party up, right? And they do build a party in the series, and the party where I'm at right now has expanded to about 10 people in that party. So you got his childhood friends, you got the royal, and you just have other, you know, people from other walks of life. There's racism in the series that they address, like humans being terrible to beastmen. You got elves and dwarves and stuff like that. You have a whole thing with dark elves. And I'm reading this, I'm just like, yo, things are really coming together. Now things do get wacky, not gonna lie, you know. But the whole name of the series itself, like, that is what I thought was pretty much tongue-in-cheek. I think that's the right term I want to use, because he's in a world with garbage balancing, right? And that name itself actually, like, nobody watching the anime this season is going to truly understand like why it's a world with garbage balancing, because the to get to the point of where the manga is why the title of the series makes a whole lot of sense, because the world is actually out of balance. Now I'm not going to get into full-on spoilers, but you know, there are threats in this world that are challenging the entire balance of the world itself. And this character here, because he was reincarnated, he was one of the reasons why the gods, I'll just say this, why the gods in this world are trying to bring balance back, right? But if the gods see that there's no hope, then like, what do you do with all video games? You reset them, right? So there's that going on now.
Okay, wait a minute. So the world that he gets reincarnated to is a video game, not like an alternate.
Technically,
world.
it is an alternate world that plays like a video game, like an RPG.
Okay.
So, because I was trying to figure out how was this going to pretty much, you know, work together and fit, because, you know, like, spoilers and everything, because we're already into this point. Like, there's demons in this world, there's even devils in this world and whatnot. And it's one of those things, like when we watch Frieren, like, hey, all right, the journey to beat the demon king, to beat the demon lords and stuff like that, right? So you're doing, like, I felt like if the team that did Dragon Quest, of Dai's Adventures, a series that was an anime a few years back, if that team was doing this anime, I think it could have actually been a lot more popular, because I think this series had potential as an anime adaptation. Now they only did 12, or I think it's only gonna be 12 episodes. I think it should have been 24. I think if this would have got 24, it would also got, you know, a better adaptation for the monsters. I know monsters is also the hardest thing for a lot of you know, animators to draw, especially given the time crunch and considering that there are so many monsters. Like what he has and what he'll get in the future, bro, there's so many monsters, and that's one of those things that does get annoying unless you have like the budget of Pokemon, and you're having to draw these different monsters over and over and over. Yeah, overall,
So, do you feel like the anime is not doing a a thoughtful, well done adaptation of the manga since you read the whole manga now?
So, where I'm at in the manga, I think the anime is passable. I think the anime is passable.
Okay.
I think it's passable enough that if you don't mind how the the summon beasts look like in in comparison to how your main character Alan looks, like you can see the our tiger like here, the way that the lines are sketched, like this
Mm-hmm.
is in 3D, the our puppy back in the background is in 3D, so even our hawks here is like in 3D where he's in 2D. So like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that can be really jarring when he's fighting against some of the other bigger animals and some of the bigger like beasts. It can look jarring as well, but it's not like the worst thing in the entire world. It's like
Mm-hmm.
animation wise, you'll be looking at it, you'll be like, all right, this is at least passable. Now that doesn't bode well for when there's going to be dragons,
Okay.
because we've seen villainous level 99 and how that look,
We sure did, and
right?
that was a big disappointment.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was a massive disappointment, right? So it's one of those things where I'm just like, damn. But if the goal, like, if this never gets a season two, and if the goal was to get people to just only read, which is often the case when it comes to anime being a very expensive project to get people to read the manga and the light novel. So this is a light novel that got adapted into a manga, well, web
Mm-hmm.
novel to light novel to manga to anime,
The
right? that's
anime.
one that's one of
Okay.
the dreams, right? So I got the job done. Now you want to get people from the anime to pick up the light novel and the manga, right? And me, I just, I picked up the manga and I started reading it, and I'm just like, yeah, you know what? This manga has a lot of promise because it does feel a bit like I'm watching an RPG. This moves incredibly fast. I will say that, right? This manga, like, it moves at I'm talking about a breakneck pace where we're
Mm-hmm.
moving days, months, sometimes even years within chapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not one of those things that just pussyfoots around. Like shit is changing like legitimately every
Mm-hmm.
chapter. Like, and we're getting through things pretty fast. So that pace can be jarring for a lot of people. So it's not like the like it's not slow pace at all. I'll say that it's not slow
Okay.
pace at all. There's a lot of movements. Now I'm going to say this last point. There are people that die
Okay.
in the series and whatnot. Um, and where I'm currently at, I was just like, okay, but why do we keep killing this one character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And notice I said keep killing,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there's a character that died. I will say it's not the main character, but there's a character that has died like twice, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, and we've revived them like twice. And I'm just like, but why him? Like, why that character? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
already, I said it's a guy character, but it's not our main character here.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
like that part was a little wonky, right? It's not that I don't understand why they didn't do it, but then they explained why.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual balancing of the world in the series itself is what is truly garbage. And because the main character has wanted a challenge in his games, which is why he's in hell mode, like people won't even understand or get to know exactly why hell mode is actually a thing in the anime where it's at right now. And I think even if you did 2 seasons, no, you would have to have done 2 seasons or 24 episodes for people to get the full grasp of a hint of what is hell mode, what is normal mode, what is extra mode, and why
So
those decisions. Yes.
how do you feel like they're portraying the story though? Like not even just animation wise or character wise. How do
Mhm.
you feel like the story itself is being adapted? Do you feel like the anime is moving way slower than the manga is? Like it should be at least a bit faster, or is it that thing of like you said, giving a series more than 12 episodes allows the story to breathe so that people can,
Mhm.
get more invested in or get have a better understanding of what's going on in the anime.
Yeah, so if I look at the adaptation where it's at now, where I began to read the manga was around chapter 16. right? Where
Mhm.
I'm at in the manga is like chapter 95. And I could
Mhm.
say that from chapter 16 to chapter 95, it's about like it would be if we went at that same pace, there's probably like 7 seasons, like or 6 seasons worth of content. If we're gonna go by one core at a time. If they were to, and I mean, I'm guessing right now because the chapters are so long as well, because I think the chapters are almost like at least I think it feels like it's well over like 30 to 40 pages per chapter. I think the series is monthly,
Mhm.
because if it was weekly the chapters would be way shorter, so I believe the series is monthly. It's been airing since like 2020 for the manga itself, so it's a bevy of about 6 years right now it's been running, right? I think the adaptation, I would say it could still be at the same pace. I just think if they would
Mhm.
have ordered 24 episodes, then I think and then those 24 episodes were aired concurrently, back to back,
Mhm.
right? Without a break, I think people will be able to digest what the series is putting on and give it a fair shot. Now I know the series is gaining popularity. It's kind of popular. It also isn't on Crunchyroll. So that's
Mhm.
another, feather in the cap for why the series isn't as popular. But it's one of those where I think once people like watch the anime and if they are interested in reading like the manga for it or reading the light novel,
Mhm.
then they'll come around and be like, oh wait, this is a bit better than I initially thought
Mhm.
going in. Because there's a couple of series that I watched this past season and I wanted to actually just read the manga for it, and I've dropped Jack of All Trades, another series that came out this season. I read the manga a little bit ahead. I'm just like, yeah, this is not it for me. This series here, I mean, I spent like almost like 10 hours plus reading all the way from 16 to 95 because I was like, I'm here now. And I felt like it was worth it, like to see how everybody advanced, see all the different techniques, see how the writer was going to weave all these different types of characters. There's a point where like right now, where I would say where I'm at right now, kind of it's like the writer was kind of losing me, but then I understood
Mhm.
why these characters are going through these types of things, and then you have a
Mhm.
character here in Alan who, spoiler alert once again, because this is a massive spoiler. So if you guys don't want to hear this massive spoiler about this series, then you need to like probably click off at this point in this yap session. He tells his comrades that he is from another world, and that
Mhm.
he is actually a 35-year-old man, right? And that even when he was born, he was a 35-year-old man, and that's also influenced, why the things he's done. Now his parents don't know, and his brothers and sisters don't know, but it is just his teammates that knows, and of course the gods themselves. And his teammates, they start ribbing him, in the
Mhm.
beginning. It's like, oh, so I was like, so you mean you've just been an unk this whole time? And
Mhm.
they rib him in the beginning. But they get past that, like considerably, because that's like one of the biggest taboos when it comes to isekai series, is that if you're from another world, you don't tell people that you're from another world, right? That's like
Right.
one of the unspoken rules. But everyone took it in stride. Now that has consequences, per se, because now you got to start to think about, well, does this mean there are other people who are also born from another world in this
Mhm.
world that are just like him, and what does that have to particularly have to do with the different modes? There's normal mode, extra mode, hell mode. So he went straight to hell mode. That's like playing a game on, like, hell, like, the hardest
Yeah, yeah.
difficulty to begin with, right? So um the fact remains is that those account for balancing. Plus the
Mhm.
gods, like people are just saying that, dang, aren't you? And he'll make jokes like, aren't you guys glad I didn't decide to become the Demon King? And because they're
Mhm.
thinking like, damn, bro, if this man like decided to become the Demon King, then we were fucked. Like nobody
Right.
was gonna live. But there's a reason why he wasn't able to become the Demon King, and then they had to create his class itself. So I like that explanation. Um,
Mhm.
there's a lot more stuff that the series will do in the future. They're doing it's a lot of war that's going down. And they haven't taken as many losses per se yet, and I think that's probably gonna be one. I think if there's one knock, you don't want your characters to just become. Well, it's not that they haven't taken losses. They also acknowledge that he's not strong enough to do these things by himself.
Mhm.
So where we like Kaiju number 8, where
Mhm.
there's team battles, that's always going on. There are very few one-on-one battles, and
Mhm.
it's so for people who love strategy and like people act like you love strategy.
I do.
So this would be a character that you would like enjoy reading like and watching because they actually are like taking advantage of everybody's ability and then
Mhm.
knowing their own weaknesses and then applying weaknesses to monsters to beat monsters. And then when some extra bullshit happens, when like bosses that you fight, we're like, wait,
Right.
another health bar? Like it feels like one of those things, and I think that's what
Mhm.
made it an exciting read because as a gamer that
Yes.
this bullshit always happens, and until it says this
Yes.
person is dead, then you gotta just be on your p's and q's because then you just get one shot and all of a sudden you're cooked. So
Yes.
yeah, that's what I think was the appeal for this. For those people that like this other series called Shangri-La Frontier, I think Helmo will be a nice read to recommend to people. The
Right.
animation
And
is not to that tier, but yeah,
do you, so pretty much what you're saying is that
yeah,
people who are enjoying the anime, or even if you feel like iffy about it,
yeah,
and if you haven't checked out the manga, that they should go check out the manga?
yeah. I would recommend people to give a chance to the Hell Mode manga.
Mhm.
For those people who like Shangri-La Frontier, you're not gonna get the same quality of animation, right? Shangri-La Frontier has around the same quality, if not better, depending, or it depends on people's taste, right?
Mhm.
Has the superior animation, and that's what will carry Shangri-La Frontier. But if you're looking for the same type of strategy, or in your character depth, then I would say they're about the same. If at least for what people are looking, if you like Shangri-La Frontier, you'll like Hell Mode. As
Mhm.
a read and maybe even as a watch. As a watch, I think Shangri-La Frontier is going to be like leaps and bounds because people value animation that much more. And I've shown
Mhm.
you like some clips of Shangri-La Frontier in the past.
Yeah.
So like that animation will carry. For people who like soul leveling, you have a summoner who is similar to Sun Jin Woo. Sun Jin Woo can use those summons to power himself up. This character is pretty much the exact same. Even though his summons, he has way more than Sun Jin Woo. Like
Mhm.
we're talking about army versus army. Like we don't know. I know what endgame Sun Jin Woo is looking like. I don't know what
Mhm.
endgame Alan is looking like, but the
Mhm.
bevy amount of summons that he has and that he'll get in the future, you could make a guess that he's gonna get S rank summons in the future, maybe even
Mhm.
more than that. Who knows what will happen in the mind of the creator? But I like the fact that they use a card system, and you have to
Mhm.
have multiple copies of these monsters to then fuse them together to make a new monster. And
Mhm.
that type of thing is going to require, like, we're talking about, you have to have the knowledge of like the same Kazuki Takahashi, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, who unfortunately
Mhm.
passed away a few years ago. Like you have to have that bevy of knowledge, and then make sure to keep track of them so that
Mhm.
they don't fall apart. So I think
All right.
yeah, people would enjoy that. I think overall I would give it a solid B, like a solid B plus
The
type of
anime.
series. No, the manga I give it to a B plus to an A. The anime I'm giving
Okay.
like a B minus. I'll give the anime like
Okay.
a B. I think adaptation wise, I think the anime is pretty solid. It's just I wish the animation was better. Legitimately,
Okay.
yeah,
Makes sense. So yeah, I
yeah,
mean that's good then. That, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to look at it objectively. You delved into the anime, then delved into the manga,
yeah,
and are seeing its faults, but its positives, and that there's definitely potential for the anime to grow and to really, really flesh out what's happening in the manga.
yeah,
Yeah, and I like that, 'cause when we first started this conversation, you weren't, like, that much of a fan of it, but I
yeah,
guess talking it through, making you, realize, or, come to the conclusion that they're not too far from each other. It's just, you know, maybe the studio who's producing the anime needs to buckle down a bit more and decide exactly how they want to go with its stylization,
Mhm.
more than anything else.
Yeah, because it's not like they can't get more time. Like, so I never want to fault the studios for the budget slash the animation that they have to work with, because we already know it's a time crunch, and the committee at the end of the day is in charge of this, right? So
Mhm.
this could literally be chopped up to one of those series where they didn't expect it to be, popular, or anything like that. But I do think a series like this, because where I ended off in the manga, the animation announcement was like around chapter like 88, right?
Mhm.
Which means that the committee, read the light novel, read the manga, said that, what, this here has potential to be good for one of our weekly ongoing series, down the line. And so they obviously went along with it. Monster design is always going to be the hardest.
Mhm.
That is the biggest thing. And not every studio is going to be great at doing monster designs, and a lot of studios will take shortcuts to do it. uh but even, it's like, for me, it was even past the monster designs, past that animation, I felt like the story was good enough, and had good bones to
Mhm.
stand on, that made it a bit different from the other isekai slop that we usually get.
Okay.
And then I was just happened to read it, and I was just pleasantly surprised at how enjoyable it was, the actual manga. And I'm just like, yeah, now I just wish that the anime reflected what I'm reading in the manga,
Mhm.
because there's gonna be like a lot of plot points that I think people would enjoy in the future. But I hope it gets to season 2. I hope
Mhm.
that it gets more popular enough so that it can get multiple seasons, and that the animation does take an uptick, because it's not like we haven't seen drastic. Look, we've
Right.
seen anime that have had amazing season 1 animation and complete astroturf, season 2 animation. There's no reason
Mhm.
why we can't see, all right, season 1 animation, and then season 2 look like a complete, like, bro, what happened?
Right.
How Sakamoto Days, for instance. We
Right. Yeah,
thought two
yeah, yeah.
people completely animated, like two different companies completely animated the first 2 cores. So there's no
Yeah.
reason why that can't happen for this, right? And that's just
Mhm.
one recent example. Because Sakamoto Days Core 2 looks like a completely different anime from Core 1. And
Mhm.
maybe it was just the source material that they needed. And
Mhm.
I think that also matters for this, because maybe the source material, once we start to get into the darker themes in the series for Hell Mode, I think it would happen. But
Mhm.
I guess that's gonna conclude my app session.
Mhm.
For this, there's a lot of spoilers. But if people are interested, I think Hell Mode is a great read. And if you want to, get your feet wet with the anime, well, there you have it. We're not sponsored to say this, but hey, High Dive, you might holla at your peoples here. I'm just saying. Just saying. With that said, folks, we'll catch you guys next time. You already know. Elsis.